If you thought drug cartels were still stuffing duffel bags with $100 bills and smuggling them across the border in hidden compartments, you are living in the past. The game has changed. Welcome to Shadow Ledger, where we follow the money no matter how deep it goes into the digital underworld. Tonight, we are pulling back the curtain on one of the most consequential shifts in organized crime finance in a generation. The weaponization of cryptocurrency ATMs by Mexican drug cartels, Chinese underground banking networks, and a constellation of money brokers operating across more than 20 American states. Subscribe to Shadow Ledger now, because what you are about to read will fundamentally change how you understand the war on drugs. The Justice Department has declared open war on the financial lifelines of Mexico's most violent drug trafficking organizations, and cryptocurrency sits at the very center of that battlefield. In early February 2026, the Associated Press reported that federal prosecutors are targeting money brokers who have adapted to intensified law enforcement pressure by routing drug profits through cryptocurrency from American cities directly to cartel leaders in Mexico. 4 defendants recently transferred from Mexico to the United States for prosecution now face money laundering conspiracy charges in Kentucky federal court, providing investigators with an unprecedented window into the shadowy financial architecture that keeps organizations like the Jalisco New Generation Cartel operational and profitable. The numbers behind this crisis are staggering and accelerating at a pace that has caught even seasoned investigators off guard. According to FBI data, Americans lost $333 million to Bitcoin ATM-related fraud in the first 11 months of 2025 alone, a 33% increase over the previous year's already alarming $250 million figure. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center recorded more than 12,000 complaints linked to cryptocurrency kiosks during that same period. But fraud is only part of the picture. The Drug Enforcement Administration has confirmed that transnational criminal organizations, including the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, are systematically using these machines to launder drug proceeds across state lines and international borders. To understand how we arrived at this moment, you need to appreciate the sheer scale of the cryptocurrency ATM industry in the United States. More than 30,000 crypto kiosks sit inside gas stations, smoke shops, convenience stores, and supermarkets across the country, accounting for approximately 81% of all Bitcoin ATMs operating worldwide. These machines allow anyone to walk in with cash, feed it into the terminal, and convert it into Bitcoin or other digital currencies that can then be transferred to anonymous wallets anywhere on the planet within seconds. The transaction is essentially irreversible. Once the cash becomes crypto and leaves the machine, traditional banking safeguards like chargebacks and transaction reversals simply do not exist. The appeal of these machines to criminal organizations is obvious, and the FBI has spelled it out in explicit terms. Special Agent Mike McGillicuddy, who specializes in financial crimes and led a task force aimed at recovering scam victims' funds, explained the dynamic with brutal clarity. Scammers and criminal operators favor these machines because there is no need for intermediaries. The money can instantaneously be put into a wallet under their control and transferred overseas, far beyond the reach of American law enforcement. This characteristic makes crypto ATMs fundamentally different from traditional financial instruments, and criminal networks from Mexico City to Shanghai have taken notice and built entire laundering infrastructures around these unassuming kiosks. The operational model that has emerged is both sophisticated and frighteningly efficient. Cartel couriers collect drug cash from distribution networks across American cities. They then structure bank deposits via ATMs in small increments designed to evade federal reporting requirements, feeding the money into accounts controlled by Chinese brokers. Those brokers aggregate the funds, convert them into digital currencies, and then layer transactions on the blockchain using obfuscation tools such as mixers and chain hops, where funds are moved through multiple intermediate crypto wallets to make them virtually impossible to trace. The cleaned cryptocurrency is then routed back to clients who can cash out overseas or pay suppliers directly, completing a cycle that finances the next shipment of fentanyl. One case that perfectly illustrates this pipeline unfolded in Los Angeles, where federal agents were tailing a Sinaloa Cartel intermediary who had hired a man to convert cash into cryptocurrency and push it through a digital maze to clients in Mexico. When agents closed in, the suspect tried to flee, ramming his vehicle into a DEA surveillance SUV before being pulled out alongside 46 sealed bundles of cash. Similar busts rippled across Los Angeles and then Miami, where authorities uncovered another crypto laundering crew tied to both Mexican and Colombian drug trafficking groups. The trail then resurfaced in New York, where investigators watched a courier haul a trash bag stuffed with $100,000 and feed bills into Brooklyn ATMs. Following the money online led investigators from those Brooklyn ATMs to cartel-controlled cryptocurrency wallets, and from there to an unexpected destination, China-based suppliers of chemical precursors used in fentanyl production. This discovery revealed something prosecutors had long suspected, but could now prove with blockchain evidence. The same crypto network that launders dirty drug cash also directly finances the upstream production of lethal synthetic opioids. By 2023, American indictments and sanctions were naming China-based chemical suppliers alongside the crypto wallets tied to them, while Mexico's Financial Intelligence Unit simultaneously reported a sharp rise in virtual asset alerts connected to organized crime groups operating on both sides of the Pacific. In July 2025, the DEA and FBI delivered what they described as a major blow to cartel financial infrastructure, when agents in Miami seized more than $10 million in cryptocurrency directly tied to the Sinaloa Cartel. The funds were allegedly connected to the trafficking of fentanyl and other synthetic opioids into the United States. Agents uncovered a complex laundering scheme involving multiple wallets and advanced obfuscation techniques, but using blockchain tracing tools and financial intelligence, they managed to untangle the web of transactions and freeze the funds before they could be dispersed. The operation was part of a sweeping multi-state crackdown called Operation Take Back America. That Miami seizure represented a pattern that the DEA has been tracking with increasing alarm. American cash seizures have roughly halved since 2020, while crypto confiscations, totaling $2.5 billion, have outpaced dollars seized. The agency has publicly stated that criminal groups are now prioritizing crypto over traditional cash-based laundering. This is not a minor tactical adjustment by the cartels. It represents a fundamental transformation in how transnational criminal organizations move money, and it has forced every agency from the FBI to FinCEN to the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control to completely reimagine how they follow the money in the 21st century. If you are not subscribed to Shadow Ledger, hit that button now. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, known by its Spanish acronym CJNG, has emerged as one of the most aggressive adopters of cryptocurrency-based money laundering in the Western Hemisphere. In December 2022, the DEA found that the CJNG had used Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, to funnel as much as $40 million in cocaine and methamphetamine proceeds through digital channels. This was not an isolated experiment. It was a systematic operation that demonstrated the cartel's willingness to embrace cutting-edge financial technology to move vast sums of illicit money. The discovery sent shockwaves through both law enforcement and the cryptocurrency industry, raising fundamental questions about exchange compliance and the limits of know-your-customer protocols. One of the most revealing prosecutions in this evolving landscape involved a Mexican national known as Meno, whose real name is José Manuel Martínez Gómez. In June 2025, Martínez was sentenced to 100 months in federal prison for his role as a money broker who served the CJNG by collecting, laundering and repatriating drug proceeds generated in the United States. According to court documents, Martínez personally arranged for the laundering of $5.4 million in drug trafficking proceeds. He used a network of co-conspirators spanning at least 13 American states to pick up cash, then provided instructions for the transfer of those funds via cryptocurrency, including specific wallet addresses and bank account details for repatriation to Mexico. The Martínez case was prosecuted under Operation Take Back America, a nationwide Department of Justice initiative that marshals the full resources of federal law enforcement to repel what prosecutors describe as the invasion of illegal immigration and achieve the total elimination of cartels and other transnational criminal organizations. DEA Special Agent in charge, Jim Scott emphasized that the agency will continue to use every tool at its disposal to disrupt the flow of drugs across borders and the flow of money back to Mexico by cartel operatives. The successful prosecution disrupted the flow of vital drug proceeds back to the CJNG and removed substantial quantities of dangerous drugs from American communities. But Martinez was far from the only money broker in the crosshairs. In the Treasury Department's landmark action of September 2023, the Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned 9 individuals linked to the Los Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa Cartel, one of the most significant fentanyl trafficking networks operating in the Americas. Among those sanctioned was Mario Alberto Jimenez Castro, alias El Castor, who was charged with running a money laundering network that used cryptocurrency and wire transfers to send proceeds from American fentanyl sales directly to cartel leaders in Mexico. OFAC designated a cryptocurrency address on the Ethereum blockchain tied to Castro, which had received over $740,000 between March 2022 and February 2023. The Castro case marked a historic first. It was the first time OFAC publicly identified the Sinaloa Cartel's use of cryptocurrency for laundering drug proceeds. Castro had directed American-based couriers to pick up cash across New York, Boston, Denver, Nashville, Omaha, and Salt Lake City, then deposit it into virtual currency wallets for payment, directly to the cartel for reinvestment in fentanyl production. Authorities flagged his crypto wallet and posted a $1 million reward for information leading to his capture. But the story did not end with an arrest. Just over a year after his sanctioning, Castro was gunned down in the state of Mexico, a fate that underscored the lethal stakes of the crypto laundering underworld. The 4 defendants recently transferred from Mexico to American custody represent the latest chapter in this intensifying campaign. Eduardo Rigoberto Velasco Calderon, Eliomar Segura Torres, Manuel Ignacio Correa, and Cesar Linares Orozco all face money laundering conspiracy charges in indictments filed in Kentucky federal court. Prosecutors allege these Mexico-based money brokers oversaw the movement of drug proceeds and pocketed a percentage of the money that returned to the cartels as commission. They arranged for cash to be picked up in cities across the United States and concealed the money to get it across the border, often through digital assets as law enforcement cut off other methods. Assistant Attorney General A. Tyson Duva, who heads the Justice Department's Criminal Division, described the strategy in stark terms during an interview with the Associated Press. If you cut off the money, you hurt the cartels, and that is exactly what federal prosecutors are trying to do. Duva explained that prosecutors want to understand from the distribution side how the networks function and who is involved, while on the money laundering side, they seek to map the exact methods being used to move money out of the United States through banks, bulk cash smuggling, and the newer trend of taking cash, buying cryptocurrency, and trading that cryptocurrency across borders. Under the Trump administration's second term, the Justice Department has restructured its criminal division to integrate narcotics prosecutors with anti-money laundering experts, reflecting a broader institutional recognition that targeting financial systems is now as important as interdicting drug shipments. Since the beginning of this administration, the Mexican government has turned over more than 90 high-level defendants with ties to cartels in 3 separate transfers. These handovers, while controversial in Mexico, where lawyers and family members have accused the government of breaking extradition law, have been described by American officials as designed not merely as deterrent messages, but as opportunities to turn defendants into cooperators. The cooperation angle is critical to understanding why money brokers are such valuable targets. Unlike street-level dealers who know only their immediate contacts, brokers sit at the intersection of drug distribution networks and financial repatriation channels. They know the names, the routes, the wallet addresses, and the commission structures that define cartel economics. When a broker cooperates with American prosecutors, the intelligence gained can cascade upward through the organization, potentially leading to indictments against high-level leaders who have never set foot in the United States. This is the strategic calculus that makes crypto laundering prosecutions among the most consequential cases in modern federal law enforcement. Meanwhile, the collaboration between Mexican cartels and Chinese underground banking networks has added an entirely new dimension to the challenge. Researchers at blockchain intelligence firm TRM Labs have documented how drug proceeds from American sales are delivered to Chinese brokers, who convert cash into cryptocurrency. The brokers then layer transactions using obfuscation services before routing cleaned funds to cartel clients overseas. Of 140 precursor chemical vendors identified across China and India, 100, all Chinese, were willing to accept payments in cryptocurrency directly. This creates a closed loop where drug money finances precursor purchases, which produce fentanyl, which generates more drug money, all mediated by cryptocurrency. While cartels and their brokers represent one axis of the crypto ATM crisis, the machines themselves have become the subject of unprecedented regulatory and legal scrutiny. On August 4, 2025, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, known as FinCEN, issued a formal notice warning financial institutions about escalating illicit activity involving cryptocurrency kiosks. The 12-page document identified specific red flag indicators and reminded institutions of their reporting requirements under the Bank Secrecy Act. FinCEN's analysis drew from law enforcement investigations, BSA filings, and consumer complaint data to build a comprehensive picture of how these machines have been weaponized. The notice explicitly named the cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación as among the transnational criminal organizations exploiting these kiosks. The FinCEN notice highlighted a particularly troubling pattern in states with dense kiosk distribution. In Illinois, where approximately 1,600 crypto ATMs operate with over 1,100 concentrated in Chicago alone, the DEA reports that large volumes of illicit proceeds are laundered through these machines. Law enforcement reporting indicates that individuals are traveling from other states specifically to Chicago to use these kiosks, suggesting a level of deliberate operational planning by criminal networks. The kiosks are typically located in businesses with heavy foot traffic, long operating hours, and convenient access, precisely the characteristics that make them attractive to both legitimate users and criminal operators seeking anonymity. The red flags identified by FinCEN paint a portrait of systematic abuse, transactions structured just below reporting thresholds to avoid triggering mandatory suspicious activity reports, customers using multiple machines across different jurisdictions in rapid succession, transactions linked to wallets already known to be associated with fraudulent activity, large cash deposits made by individuals who show no familiarity with cryptocurrency technology, suggesting they are being directed by someone else. These patterns, replicated across thousands of machines in dozens of states, represent what FinCEN increasingly views as a systemic risk rather than a collection of isolated incidents. The agency has urged financial institutions to enhance monitoring and file suspicious activity reports immediately. The crisis deepened dramatically in early February 2026 when Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell filed a landmark lawsuit against Bitcoin Depot, the largest Bitcoin ATM operator in the United States, which owns more than 8,000 crypto kiosks nationwide. The lawsuit alleged that Bitcoin Depot knowingly facilitated scam activity on an extraordinary scale. Investigators found that more than 80% of customers who had spent $10,000 or more at Bitcoin Depot kiosks between August 2023 and January 2025 had utilized them in connection with scam transactions. Nearly 60% of the company's total Massachusetts revenue during this period came from these scam-related transactions. The details uncovered by the Massachusetts investigation were damning. According to court filings, Bitcoin Depot employees had repeatedly warned company management that nearly all large transactions conducted through their crypto ATMs were linked to scams. Compliance analysts internally estimated that more than 90% of the company's biggest customers were victims. One analyst even warned leadership that the company was facilitating money laundering at an extreme volume. Yet, instead of strengthening safeguards, the lawsuit alleges that Bitcoin Depot actually reduced the questions it asked customers making large transactions, making it less likely to uncover fraud. The company chose a path of what prosecutors describe as willful ignorance. The victim demographics revealed by the Massachusetts case underscored the human cost of this industry's failures. Scam customers in Massachusetts had a median age of 67. More than 70% of victims were over 60 years old, and dozens were over 80. Collectively, elderly victims in their 80s alone poured more than $700,000 into the kiosks during the review period. These were not sophisticated investors making informed financial decisions. They were retirees on fixed incomes who had been terrorized by phone calls from people impersonating the IRS, their banks, law enforcement officers, or even family members in distress. The machines charged fees of up to 30%. Massachusetts was not alone in taking action. Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird filed suit against Bitcoin Depot and competitor CoinFlip in February 2025, alleging that the companies profit from scam victims while charging massive hidden transaction fees. The Iowa lawsuit claimed that scams accounted for more than half of all money taken in by Bitcoin Depot in Iowa over a roughly 3-year period, totaling more than $7 million in scam transactions. In Washington, D.C., Attorney General Brian Schwalb sued crypto ATM operator Athena Bitcoin in September 2025, alleging that residents were paying 26% in undisclosed fees, while the company exploited elderly adults and violated consumer protection laws. Missouri Attorney General Catherine Hanaway launched a statewide investigation into Bitcoin ATM operators, issuing civil investigative demands to 5 major companies, including CoinFlip, Rocketcoin, Bitcoin Depot, Athena Bitcoin, and Byte Federal. Authorities demanded detailed information on fee structures, transaction practices, and internal anti-fraud policies. In Arizona, authorities reported losses exceeding $177 million in a single year connected to crypto ATM fraud. These investigations signal what analysts describe as a fundamental shift in regulatory approach. Crypto ATMs are increasingly viewed not as neutral financial infrastructure, but as potential components of fraud schemes, with responsibility potentially extending beyond the criminals who exploit them to the business owners who profit. The security vulnerabilities of the crypto ATM ecosystem were further exposed in late 2024 when Byte Federal, one of the largest operators in the country with more than 1,200 machines across 42 states, disclosed a catastrophic data breach. Hackers exploited a vulnerability in GitLab, a third-party developer platform, to gain unauthorized access to company servers. The breach compromised the personal data of 58,000 customers, including names, addresses, phone numbers, government-issued identification documents, social security numbers, transaction histories, and even user photographs. The breach occurred on September 30th, but was not discovered until November 18th, giving attackers nearly 7 weeks of undetected access. Cybersecurity experts who analyzed the Byte Federal breach noted that the compromised data was particularly dangerous for cryptocurrency holders. The combination of personal identification information and transaction histories created perfect conditions for SIM swap attacks, account takeovers, and targeted phishing campaigns. There was immediate concern that the database could be offered for sale on the dark web, providing criminals with a curated list of people known to own crypto wallets. The incident raised fundamental questions about whether companies that collect sensitive biometric and financial data as part of their Know Your Customer obligations are capable of protecting that information from sophisticated threat actors. A joint investigation by CNN and the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists brought additional scrutiny to the relationship between crypto ATM operators and major retail chains. The investigation found that Circle K, one of the crypto ATM industry's biggest corporate partners, had made millions of dollars by renting space to Bitcoin Depot machines in more than 750 of its stores, even amid mounting evidence that the machines were playing a key role in international fraud schemes. CNN and ICIJ reviewed more than 150 cases of crypto ATM scams at Circle K stores and spoke to 17 employees who said they witnessed and sometimes tried to prevent fraud while at work. The retail partnership model that has fueled the crypto ATM expansion deserves careful examination. Companies like Bitcoin Depot generate revenue by charging markups of 20 to 30% on cryptocurrency transactions, fees that are applied equally to legitimate purchases and transactions driven by fraud. Retailers like Circle K collect rent for hosting the machines and have financial incentives to maintain the relationship regardless of how the kiosks are being used. A CNN investigation reviewed more than 700 criminal cases and complaints and found that crypto ATM companies often fail to refund money to victims, aggressively fight police efforts to seize scam proceeds from machines, and have lobbied state legislatures to weaken protective regulations. The legislative response at the federal level has been slow and largely ineffective. Senator Dick Durbin introduced the Crypto ATM Fraud Prevention Act, which would impose strict transaction limits and require companies to offer full refunds to fraud victims who report losses within a certain period. But the bill has not progressed since its introduction in the Republican-led Senate. At the state level, over a dozen states have drafted or passed bills calling for transaction limits, scam warnings, refund options, or new licensing requirements. Colorado implemented daily transaction limits and mandatory fraud warnings. Some localities have taken even more direct action, with officials in Spokane, Washington, issuing citations to businesses operating the machines. The cryptocurrency industry has pushed back against what it views as regulatory overreach, arguing that the machines provide legitimate financial services and that criminal exploitation should not define the entire sector. Bitcoin Depot's chief legal officer has maintained that once a user completes a transaction and the crypto is funded into the wallet of their choosing, the company's involvement ends. Industry advocates point to know your customer procedures, identification requirements, and on-screen warnings as evidence of good faith compliance efforts. However, critics note that these measures are demonstrably insufficient when 80% of high-value transactions at a major operator are tied to fraud, and that the business model inherently profits from criminal activity. For the cartels, the proliferation of unregulated or poorly regulated crypto ATMs across the American landscape represents a strategic windfall that has transformed how they move money. The traditional challenges of bulk cash smuggling, the physical risk of carrying large sums across borders, the logistical complexity of structuring deposits to avoid detection have been dramatically reduced by machines that convert untraceable cash into untraceable digital currency at the push of a button. The DEA's 2025 National Drug Threat Assessment explicitly identified cryptocurrency kiosks as key instruments in the laundering of drug proceeds. The convergence of cartel finance, technological vulnerability, and regulatory failure has created a perfect storm, and subscribed to Shadow Ledger to stay ahead of it. The broader trajectory of this crisis points toward an uncomfortable conclusion for American law enforcement and policymakers. Organized crime is winning the cryptocurrency arms race. Despite significant seizures like the $10 million Miami bust and individual prosecutions like the Martinez case, the overall volume of illicit cryptocurrency transactions continues to grow exponentially. A report from Insight Crime noted that in 2025, Latin American criminal organizations went all in on cryptocurrency, with one Brazilian network laundering over $190 million through exchanges in a single year. The Sinaloa Cartel and CJNG have moved from experimenting with digital assets to operating what analysts describe as industrial-scale crypto-based money laundering operations. The challenge is compounded by the global nature of cryptocurrency transactions, which can cross multiple jurisdictions in seconds. Many of the top exchanges receiving funds from American crypto ATMs are based in jurisdictions with historically weak anti-money laundering laws, such as the Cayman Islands and Nigeria. A Secret Service official who spoke on condition of anonymity described this pattern as a significant red flag, noting that when large fees are charged and people are willing to pay them despite cheaper and equally convenient alternatives, it likely indicates money laundering. The speed at which criminal networks adapt their tactics consistently outpaces the regulatory response, creating a persistent gap that cartels and their financial architects exploit. The Justice Department's restructured approach, integrating narcotics prosecution with anti-money laundering expertise, represents the most significant institutional response to this challenge. But prosecutors acknowledge that they are chasing a moving target. As one method of laundering is shut down, criminal networks pivot to another. Bulk cash smuggling gives way to cryptocurrency purchases, which evolve into more sophisticated layering techniques using mixers and chain hops. The cooperation of defendants transferred from Mexico offers a potential intelligence windfall, but the window of operational advantage from any single prosecution is limited. The cartels are organizational learning machines, and their financial operations evolve as fast as the technology that enables them. FinCEN's August 2025 notice may represent a turning point in how regulators approach the crypto ATM industry. By formally linking these machines to drug trafficking organization activity alongside fraud and cybercrime, the agency has placed crypto kiosk oversight squarely within its highest national priorities. The notice requires financial institutions to file suspicious activity reports with a specific identifier tag, allowing FinCEN to aggregate data and identify emerging laundering typologies across the entire industry. This data-driven approach could eventually provide the foundation for more effective regulation. But the gap between identifying the problem and implementing solutions remains dangerously wide in an industry that processes billions of dollars annually. The human cost of this crisis extends far beyond the statistics and case numbers. Behind every complaint filed with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center is a person, often elderly, often on a fixed income, who was terrorized by a phone call and directed to a gas station kiosk where they fed their life savings into a machine that converted their security into someone else's cryptocurrency. Behind every cartel prosecution is a community devastated by fentanyl, where the drug profits extracted from American streets are recycled through digital wallets into precursor chemical purchases from Chinese suppliers, completing a lethal feedback loop that cryptocurrency ATMs have made faster, cheaper, and more difficult to disrupt. The case is currently being prosecuted in Kentucky federal court, the lawsuits filed by attorneys general across multiple states. The FinCEN warnings and the ongoing DEA operations all point to a single conclusion. The era of unregulated cryptocurrency ATMs functioning as de facto money laundering terminals for transnational criminal organizations is reaching a critical inflection point. Whether the response from Congress, federal agencies, and state regulators will prove adequate to the scale of the threat remains an open question. What is not in question is that the cartels have found in these ubiquitous machines a financial weapon that has fundamentally altered the economics of drug trafficking in the Americas. As this investigation demonstrates, the intersection of cryptocurrency technology, organized crime finance, and regulatory failure represents one of the most consequential law enforcement challenges of the decade. The Shadow Ledger team will continue to track every indictment, every seizure, and every policy development in this rapidly evolving space. The money is moving at the speed of light through blockchain networks that span continents, and the organizations that control those networks are among the most violent and sophisticated criminal enterprises on the planet. The question is no longer whether cryptocurrency ATMs are being used to finance drug trafficking. The question is whether anyone can stop it fast enough to matter. If this investigation opened your eyes to how deep the crypto cartel pipeline really runs, you know what to do. Subscribe to Shadow Ledger, share this report, turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The cartels are not slowing down. The money brokers are not taking a day off. The machines are still humming in gas stations and convenience stores in every state in this country, converting cash into crypto 24 hours a day. We are committed to being the source that follows every dollar, every wallet, and every indictment until the full picture comes into focus. This is Shadow Ledger, and we are just getting started. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and we will see you in the next investigation.